something that happened to me one time at a university. A woman stood up, an elderly woman, rather large woman. She said, I want to know something. How come you Muslim men can have 4 wives and a woman can only have 1 husband? I said, excuse me, ma'am, are you married? She said, yeah. I said, okay. Why don't you do this? Right now, I want you to imagine your husband. She said, why? I said, oh, just for a minute. Imagine your husband. He's coming home from work, right? He comes to his favorite chair, sit down, relax. You have to serve him, take care of him, all so and so. You just get this guy in your mind, okay? Just imagine him. She said, and? I said, you got him in your mind? She said, yeah. I said, okay, how would you like to have another one just like him? She said, no way. I said, well, then why you want 4? But this really is not the best answer for them. I'll tell you why. Because this isn't the way the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ would have answered the question. It's a very direct question. It needs a direct answer. The reason in Islam for the 4 wives is not for the man as much as it is for the woman. And you have to understand that Islam is not just about what I want, but it's also about what you want. So there are rights and there are limits. Everybody has their rights, but there are limits. Let me explain. Islam forbids a man to marry a woman who's already married. You must choose women who are not married. And you must choose from women who are old enough to make the decision. It isn't permissible to marry a girl without her consent. And she can't give it if she's not old enough. So this is part of the verse when saying not to marry these little girls, these little orphan girls. But rather marry who? Women of your choice who are able to decide for themselves that they'd like to get married. But look at the decision they get to make. Because we're going to turn it upside down and we're going to analyze this for a minute. A man is not allowed to marry women who are already married. He's also not allowed to marry more than 4. The companions of Muhammad, peace be upon him, they were not enthused about this verse coming from the aspect that, oh wow, I can go out and get a bunch of wives, because they already had that. There was no limit for them. They could do that. In fact, they had to get rid of some of their wives. They had to divorce wives if they had more than 4. And they had to divorce even more than that if they couldn't treat them fairly. So if they were not able to provide for them on an equal basis, then they could only marry 1. Now, the woman on the other hand, and by the way, there's always been more women than men. You can go through the annals of history and you'll notice that there's always more women on earth than there are men at any given point in time, especially these days. A woman has the right to choose any man she would like unless he already has 4 wives. So this opens up a very big selection for her. She can observe how he treats his other wives. And if he's a good, kind, generous, and religious man, and she said, well, I like this guy. Look how he's treating this sister over here. I think that this is the way I would like to be treated. So you know what? I tell you what, I'm going to choose this guy to be my husband. Now, if you said, well, I don't like that idea, well, nobody's forcing you. In fact, the man's not forced to have 4 wives. A woman is not forced to be in a situation where there are 4 wives. For the most part, if we look at the Muslims today, we find that that's not the case anyway. The big thing here isn't about the number of wives. The big thing here is that there is absolutely, emphatically, always the insistence that there be no sex outside of marriage. So the emphasis is on the contract of marriage. A man in the West can have as many girlfriends, mistresses, as he would like. No problem. But yet they'll limit him to only 1 wife. If he has a child out of wedlock, a lot of these guys escape from that. They don't even take care of the child financially. You have to make man-made laws to take care of the problem that comes out of these men having these extramarital affairs. And there's really nothing to stop him from doing this. There's no real law out there that says a man can't have girlfriends. But there is in Islam. It's very clear. If you would like to have a relationship, and this is encouraged in Islam, it's only with your own wife. And you can only have 1 unless you can treat them with equal fairness. Then you could have 2 or 3 or 4, but that's the limit. What that does for the woman. Stop and think about it. Here is a man who can only choose from the unmarried women. If there were only 2 left in the village, that's the only 2 he could that's the only 2 that he could choose from. But in the case of the woman, even if they were all married, she could still choose from those who don't have 4 wives. So there is something here of balance, of equal rights and equal opportunity. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.